Well, hello, this is Vincent Green, and on my channel, I have started teaching New Testament Greek grammar, and there's a playlist on my channel for that, but I also wanted to begin teaching Old Testament Hebrew grammar. And so this is the first video in a series of videos that will come where if you desire to want to learn the grammar of the Old Testament, the Hebrew grammar because of the Hebrew language, this is a place where you can learn that. So I'm going to be producing a series of videos and instruction, providing resources as well. All the resources will be located in the description box below the YouTube videos. So there'll be links there, a series of links that'll take you to documents, resources, kind of sample quizzes and worksheets that you can use to test your knowledge of Hebrew. Maybe you've watched some of the Greek lessons that I've been doing and you're curious about Old Testament Hebrew. This is the place for you. All the materials are free to use, and in whatever way would help you. All the videos are free. Again, it's freely available on YouTube. My YouTube channel is not monetized, so I'm not making any money at this. But I wanted to do this for many years, and now I have a way of doing that using technology. So the Old Testament was written in two languages. Primarily Hebrew is the language of the Old Testament, but there was parts of Ezra and parts of Daniel that were written in a different dialect, but it looks the same in print. But that other dialect, that other language is called Aramaic. And so there's differences in terms of the grammar. Aramaic grammar is different than Hebrew grammar. And at some point in time, I'm going to do a video series on Aramaic grammar, but to really learn Aramaic grammar, you have to learn Hebrew grammar first. And so this is going to be the beginning. This is the first video in a long series of videos that would consist of like a year-long course in what we could say first year Hebrew, which is Hebrew grammar. Beyond that, you would have readings in Hebrew, readings from the Old Testament. Then you would also deal with the issues of syntax, deal with the issues of what does it mean by what it looks like, and then then you get into Hebrew exegetical studies, where you take a book of the Bible, a book of the Old Testament, or a series of passages from the Old Testament, and you study them in the Hebrew language. And so eventually all of that will be on my channel, just as I'm doing for New Testament Greek. The New Testament was written in Greek, so I'm doing the same kind of series for New Testament Greek. Greek grammar, then Greek reading, Greek syntax, then Greek exegesis, and then exegetical studies beyond that for New Testament books. So it's wonderful to be able to start this, to be able to work on this. My plan is to release these videos as I can. I usually set aside 1 day a week, normally, to record these and get these out to the public. And if it's helpful to you, if you find it interesting, please make a comment below. And if you have a question, that's the best way to get to me, is ask a question in the comments below, and then I can reply to it. I can answer it. So anytime anyone makes comments on any videos that I have in my channel, I get that. I get that information, and I receive the reply, and we're able to respond to it. So so anyway, let me get started by showing you the book that we're going to use. This book is an older book, but it's free. The link to the website that I'm showing you right now that allow you to have free access to it. You can look at it as long as you want, and you don't even have to borrow it. It's just freely available for you. It's called A Practical Grammar for Classical Hebrew. And there was a guy named Jay Wingreen who wrote this book. Second edition, that's the last edition that was made. But again, it's free, and I'm going to use it to work through the grammar. So you're going to see me have the images of the pages of this grammar on the screen. Now, when I do show you this, it's going to be enlarged. So I'm on a certain site. Again, the links to this resource are in the YouTube description below, so you can access the same book. Um, and so it's all available to you. But if I zoom this out a little bit, you can see the whole page. That's where like the first page is. But I'm going to be zooming in so you can kind of see it on the screen. And that way, as I teach, you're also going to see these pages move around a little bit because this is the resource I'm using, and this is the way I access this textbook, just as you will access the textbook. You can watch it here and also view the textbook whenever you like. That for every video, the link to the textbook will always be there. So as you look at this, you'll see that it's not like if you've been following my Greek studies, Greek grammar studies, there's like lesson 1, lesson 2. It's all these different individual lessons, and for the Greek grammar book that I'm using, there's actually 33 lessons in the grammar book. This is not organized that same way. It's not organized by lessons. It's organized by paragraphs and sections, really. And so there's sections A, B, C, D. Then you get to numbers. And every so often within these section numbers, you have exercises. So as we go through the grammar book, I'll explain all of that as we go. And in the title to the videos, it's going to have the name of it, and you can kind of go with the contents. The contents is table of contents here is your guide to match with the videos, so that you know what video is being, what section numbers are being taught in the within each video. In today's video, I'm going to begin the process of looking at the Hebrew alphabet. We're just going to start walking through the Hebrew alphabet. In our next video, so I'm really going to talk about the Hebrew alphabet and how to pronounce the letters. So we're going to be going back and forth between A and B, A and B. You'll see how he arranged this material. In the next video, we're still focusing on just A and B, the Hebrew alphabet, but I'm actually going to show you how to write the letters. So I'm going to do that in a separate video, how to compose the different letters, and show you how to do that. But again, we get started by just dealing with the Hebrew alphabet. Now, before I do that though, there may be a question in regards to how did the Hebrew alphabet develop? How did it ever come about? Well, I could try to teach a long lecture on that, but I don't think I will. There's another way for you to learn about Hebrew grammar in terms of, or just the Hebrew language, in terms of how it developed. So what I have for you is a couple of videos, and I'm going to provide these links below. I'm hoping you can access this totally for free. I found these for free. You have to watch them in this order. This is a documentary type of video. So each video is about 2 hours long. I mean, they're lengthy, so it may take a little while to go through them. But you can watch them on this website called Tubi, T-U-B-I. You probably would have to create a free account to join that site. It doesn't cost anything, totally free. And then you click the links, and it should take you to it, and you would find it. So the first documentary movie, is called Patterns of Evidence, and it's called The Exodus. So they're dealing with information about the Exodus. Now, how this connects with the Hebrew language is when you watch the first video, it sets you up for the second video called the Moses Controversy. In the Moses Controversy, then they're getting into the language of Hebrew and how it developed and what God was doing by allowing that language to develop so that God's word could be written in the Old Testament in the language of the Hebrew people, of the nation of Israel. And so I found both videos together, even though the first video doesn't talk about the Hebrew language as much. It sets it up. You have to watch the first documentary movie, to appreciate the second one, which the first one is the Exodus, and the second one is the Moses Controversy. Now, this person who has done these movies, these documentary movies, he's continuing his project on these patterns of evidence about Moses and about the Exodus, but I haven't found those for free yet. Those you have to pay for. Maybe they'll eventually all be free. But for now, these two documentary movies, watching them in this order, and again, both of the links to these will be in the YouTube description box below. If you watch those, you'll get a good idea of how the language of Hebrew developed. It's pretty interesting how God brought it into existence for His Word to be written down, because Moses is the author, the human author that God used under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit to write down the words for the first 5 books. And so this is what's so interesting to see how this developed. The whole purpose of these sets of videos that I'm doing is to show you how to read the language, to get you into the ability that you can look at Hebrew and look at the Old Testament in Hebrew and be able to work your way through it in a way that you can understand it. And so we're going to take it piece by piece. This is a long process. And so I'm hoping you would do, if you dedicate some time to this, it's worthy of a study. This is what sometimes Hebrew and Greek and Aramaic, all these biblical languages are offered in like Bible colleges, and students come to these colleges and take all this language training, and they have to pay big money for it. I went through school. I went through Bible college. I went through seminary and dealt with Hebrew. And most of the time when you're going through these language studies like this, you're doing many other things, and it's difficult to stay up to pace with it. What I'm trying to do is create a video series where it's at a pace that you can understand and a pace that you can follow that works for you. But it's still going to take dedication. It's going to take commitment to be able to do this kind of study. You may not want to do this, but it's going to be here and available. And I took this language study years and years ago, and I'm glad to be able to offer it. So just also so you know, and again, there'll be a link for this. This is the Hebrew Bible. It's more of a German website, but it gives you access to view the Hebrew Bible, the text. This is Genesis chapter 1. I've blown this up so it's visible to you on screen. But again, you can just scroll down, and you see the verse numbers here are kind of like in a light shaded color, but those are the verse numbers. And if you're looking at this now, it doesn't look anything like anything you could understand. I get it, especially if you've never had Hebrew at all. Hebrew reads from right to left, so we start on the right side of the page and we go left, right to left. So it's that's why this lines up, down the page, but these don't. So there's not this, there's not everything's lining up in the left margin, because this language is read from right to left, is how the words are formed and how we read the text. So this is Genesis. You can click up here, and then there's, go to any chapter. You can scroll down, and let's say I want to look at, this is, I want to look at Malachi. Now, the word order here, or the book order, is not the Old Testament order of the books, is not the way it is in our Bibles. It's the way it is in the Hebrew Bible. So like you have Malachi, it's not the last book of the Hebrew Bible, but this would be Psalms. So if I click Psalms and I want to view Psalm 23, which is a very famous psalm, here's Psalm 23 in Hebrew. So just 6 verses, very short. If I want to look at, and I can close it by doing that. If I want to look like at the book of Daniel, well, no, let me do, here's Nehemiah or Ezra. Let me do Ezra chapter 1. So you just click it and you just scroll down and you get the whole chapter, and then you can navigate by, there's Ezra 2, click the left arrow back to Ezra 1. So there's different ways to navigate this. It's very simple, and so you just want to, and this would allow you, so once we get to Hebrew reading, which will be a ways down the road in terms of watching videos, um, you would be able to access the entire Hebrew text, Old Testament, on this website. They also have one for the Greek New Testament, which I make available for the Greek grammar class. So you can go over to the Greek grammar videos, watch some of those. I would start at the beginning. You want to watch at the beginning or wherever. And if you're already watching those, just any of those videos, if you go to the YouTube description box again, you'll see a link for the Greek New Testament, which is put out by the same people. It's put out by the same people, but it's not. You can't print, I don't think. You can't copy, but it's put out by the same people, and they allow you to be able to look at this for free, and so that's a good thing. So anyway, that resource is available. So these two documentary movies and this website, I'm going to put again in the YouTube description. Well, let's get into the letters. Again, the way this grammar is organized, we start with the Hebrew alphabet, and then it has a section that teaches us the phonetical value of those letters. So how do we pronounce those letters? How do we speak those letters? So here's the Hebrew alphabet, and so I just kind of want to show you this, and I may even try to zoom in just a little bit more here. There we go. I can blow this up a little bit more. So let me just kind of walk you through the letters and just talk through this for now, and kind of show you what's here. The Hebrew alphabet has what's called 22 consonants. They're all consonant letters. Okay? You say, well, what about vowels? Well, Hebrew has a system of vowels, but it's not letters. The letters don't represent vowels. Originally they did, but now they don't. And so there's what's called vowel points. These are marks that are made under the letters, under the big letters that we're going to be looking at. And so that forms the words. And so it's going to take a few sessions just to get to the place where you're able to understand or read or at least be phonetically able to read the text. Before we even start translating, before we start the idea of translating and getting into translation, that's a little bit down the road. It's different than Greek. In Greek, usually in the second or third lesson, we're getting into translation and we're working through it. Hebrew is not that easy. Hebrew is a little bit different in terms of way to teach the grammar so you can get into it. But we got to start somewhere. So it starts with learning 22 consonants. So each letter has a name to it. And again, in the documentary, you're going to see a little bit more about this and kind of how the letters were derived. And again, all of that information is in the documentary movies. So I won't cover that here. I just want to get into the actual letters itself and kind of get you acquainted to this. So the name of each letter, I'm going to say the name, and then then you can see what it looks like. And this is called the script, S-C-R-I-P-T. This is the script form, meaning when you look at it on this website, okay? When you look at it on this website, what you're looking at is the script form. But do you see all these little dots underneath letters and kind of symbols and dots and symbols? We're going to be learning that over the next few sessions. We're going to learn about all this, what you're looking at. But we're going to start with the consonant letters. And so you need to learn the name of the letter. You need to learn the transliteration value of the letter. For now, you don't have to worry about the numerical value of the letter, but you need to learn the name, the transliteration, and what the letter looks like. And so with the transliteration, that's going to help us with the phonetical aspect of it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate my tab here so that I can take us over to the phonetical section of the book, which is just the next page, but that way I can kind of show you this at the same time. So let me just zoom in here so I can go back and forth between both of these and kind of work through it. So it does say here it's essential to know the correct phonetical value of every Hebrew consonant since a great deal of Hebrew grammar results directly from the peculiar pronunciation of certain consonants. So you got to learn the values of these letters. And so here we go. So I'm going to have this screen open because it goes through the same kind of order that you see in the chart. And then, so I can make this a very, very simple in terms of how to show this, how to do this, how to go through this. So it's very, very important that you follow this kind of line of thought here. Okay, so let's go through it. So the name of the first letter is Aleph. Aleph. That's how you would pronounce that. It's like A-L-E-F. It's an F more sounding name than P. It's like a PH if you wrote it out. So A-L-E-P-H. And we pronounce it Aleph. And it's the first letter, first consonant letter in the alphabet. Here's what's interesting about it. It has no phonetical value to it. It's represented by literally a light breathing mark. You would be familiar with this light breathing mark. In Greek, that's called a smooth breathing in terms of the language. But it's an unvoiced letter. It's like a cutting off of the breath. Its consonantal value being apparent when it has a vowel. So usually there's a vowel underneath it, and so you'll learn how to do this. It's analogous, though, to like a silent H in the word honest. You see, when I say honest, what you're hearing is it's the letters O-N-E-H-E-S-T. I'm not saying honest, honest. But it appears in the letter, or in the word, the letter appears there, but it doesn't really have a phonetical value to it. Does that make sense? So that is the way Aleph is. It has no phonetical value. So there'll be another letter that's like that that we'll see. So the next letter is Bait. 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 And so you'll notice here that it has the same shape. And again, the next video that I do is I'm gonna walk through how to draw them. So I can talk more about how they look and when we get to that video. But just notice, see the kind of they're both similar, but it can appear without a dot in the middle, and then it can appear with a dot. What's that dot? Well, that's another discussion that we will have later more definitively. But when the beta letter, when the letter has the dot, it's simply the letter B sound. Buh, buh, buh. But without the dot, it's more pronounced like a V sound. That's what you need to know right now. So that's why when you look at the transliteration, that's the hard B, we would say. That goes along with the dot inside of the letter. But without, it's like a V, and it's a V. It sounds like a V, but we represent it in transliteration by a BH sound. Sometimes you can put the letter B with a little line underneath it like that. But it has the sound of a V, a phonetical sound of V. So you want to be aware of that, okay? The third letter is Gimel, 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 G-I-M-E-L, Gimel. And again, it can have the dot or no dot. And the way this works is if it's a hard G, like in go, if it has the dot, it's almost like a guttural R, which that is difficult for me to pronounce or produce that sound. If it doesn't have the dot in it, but that's okay. Pronunciation of Hebrew words is not what you want to master. It's translation, right? We're looking at this to translate, to be able to understand the meaning of the text. So, but just so you know, you kind of get a rough idea. When I was taking Hebrew, I think I remember my Hebrew professor saying, you know what? At the end of the day, when it's the Gimel letter, just take it as a G. Don't worry about it. Kind of the G sound. Even though originally the Hebrew speakers, they were able to nuance the pronunciation from one to the other, but for us, we don't have to really worry about that as much. Now, the Fourth letter in the alphabet is a dalet. Dalet. Again, it can have the dot or without the dot. So these three letters can have those different options. And so if it's that way, then you have dalet is simply D, the D sound. And then if it doesn't have the dot in it, it's the same as it's more like a TH sound, like in the word the. So it is, again, the main thing is that these are harder sounds. These are the more rougher sounds, what you would normally expect with a letter. But these are more the softer version of the sounds. And so in terms of pronunciation, you just want to think about that. Again, mastery of pronunciation is not what we're after here, but you got to start somewhere, and I want you to be acquainted with these letters. I want you to be acquainted with how the letters look and how they operate in terms of pronunciation value. The next letter is what we say hey. It's like hey, like saying hey or hi to someone, hey, and it's a value, a transliteration value of an H. And so you have the way it looks here. It looks very similar to the Dalet, but you have like the Dalet symbol with an extra dash down there, an extra little like another foot that's not connected. So again, when I'm showing you how to draw the letters, I'll be able to kind of give you some pointers on all of that and how all that looks. And so, but when we talk about the H or the hey, it's an H sound. It's a simple H sound, and so you there's none of this. It looks one way, it pronounces this way, it pronounces that way. When you see this, it's like an H value, and you'll see how these letters are being used as we get to know words and vocabulary, and we start really getting into the grammar in future lessons. But again, right now, the purpose is to expose you to the alphabet. Let me see if I can just blow this up a little bit more. There we go. So the next letter is, some will say wav or some will say vav. Some, the name of the word, the name of the letter is either wa or vav. And you can go your different ways. I learned it as vav, but technically it's W-A-W. And so again, you can see what kind of it looks like in its script form. You'll learn eventually how this letter is really used in the Hebrew language, what kind of functionality it has to it. But it has a W, some would say a V sound as well, but just put it with the W sound to it. And let's see what he says about it. Just put a W there. It's the W sound, okay? So the next letter is Zion, and the way these letters are pronounced, the name of the letter, kind of gives you some help, right? Bait gives you the B sound, Gimel, the G sound, Dalet, the D sound, Hey, the H sound, Wa, the W sound, Zion, the Z sound. So the name of the letter can help you in terms of knowing the transliteration, know how it works, know the pronunciation value. Again, when I show you drawing of this, you'll be able to see all of this and see that it's that Z sound for Zion, So the next letter is Het. Het. And you see how I'm kind of roughing it there? I got a little roughing on the initial Het. And so it's not Het, but it's a Het. There's a little bit of a guttural to it, kind of. And notice it's still an H sound. It's an H sound, but notice what they say. The H with that dot underneath it is to distinguish it from the H without the dot underneath it. Now, the difference between the two letters in terms of how they look, you see how this one has an open space right there, but this one closes it. So that's the difference between which letter are you thinking of and which letter is being used. And so that's the difference. But it's this het sound is like the CH in the Scots word loch, like Loch Ness Monster, loch, loch. So think of it as that's kind of the pronunciation value of the letter. And so you just want to be aware of that. So again, what you want to be learning is just kind of spotting the letter, and you want to spot the letter, then you want to spot the name and the transliteration value. And one of the things I have done is there is a program called Quizlet. It's an app that you can put on your mobile device. You can view it online. I give you instructions in the YouTube description about how to install that app on your phone or mobile device. It's all free. You don't have to pay for any of this. And then what I've created is, as I create like vocabulary, I'll create vocabulary cards for each exercise. You'll see that eventually. But one of the things I've created is kind of a way where you can memorize the Hebrew alphabet. So what I have here is I have the letter on one side of each of the vocabulary cards, if you want to call it that. The card will have the letter itself. You'll see the script form of the letter, and then on the back side it'll have the name of the letter and the transliteration value. So that way when you see the letter, you can say to yourself, and you can quiz yourself, you can put them in all kinds of orders, you can do everything you want to it to test yourself. That's one way you can learn the letters. Another way to learn the letters, I tell this to all my Greek students, is just write all of this out on a blank sheet of paper. Try to write the letters, form the letters, draw the letters. I have in the YouTube description, I'm going to have a paper worksheet kind of thing where you can just download it. It's a PDF document or an image, and you can print it though, and it'll give you like the lines so you can kind of draw the letters. You'll see me use that in the next video. So I'm giving you all these tools so that you can work through learning the order of the letters, the names of the letters, what the letters look like in script form, and their transliteration phonetical value. So you want to be aware of all that. All of these tools are going to be made available to you so that you can do that. Now, on that initial entry in Quizlet, I'm also going to put the numerical values. I will explain that. It's not as big to learn that at this point, but if you're going to read the Hebrew Bible, there's numbers in there about, how many dates and times and months and all these kinds of things. And how, when you're thinking about like when it breaks down the numbers for the different tribes, it'll tell you the registry of how many people is in this tribe, how many is in this tribe, how many came back from the exile. So these numbers, and you can look at translations and the numbers are there, but if you want to see how it looks in Hebrew, this is how they did it. They didn't have a numbering system. They used the letters, the consonant letters, to show phonetical value or numerical value, okay, to show these numbers. And so, we'll look at that later, but right now, we just want to keep going through these letters. So we finished up with het, and now this tet. So it still has a kind of a guttural sound to it. This is what it looks like, but it's a T sound, and so when you have a T with the dot, because you're going to have a letter with the T sound without the dot, when you have a T with the dot underneath, it's like a dull T, produced by placing the tongue against the palate. I mean, it's again a little bit different. There's another letter that's coming. That's the regular T sound. But again, at some point when you're reading these words and just kind of pronouncing these words, these Hebrew words, your pronunciation is going to be kind of garbled. It's not going to be the best, but that's okay. You're not having to worry about reading this precisely in terms of the phonetical value of it, but by getting acquainted with all of this phonetical language at the beginning, or the phonetical value of the language, of the alphabet, of the consonants, it gets you started. It gets you familiar with it. That's the whole point. I want the letters to become familiar to you. I want them to be something that is very familiar to you, that you can you get acquainted with them, because these are the constant letters. You're going to see these all the time. These are how the words are formed. So we have tet, and then we have yod. Yod is just like a simple scribble there. I'll show you how to make that when we get to showing the letters and when I'm drawing the letters. We have yod, and that's a Y sound. A Y sound. So that's what he says here. Yod is a Y sound. Then we have kaf. Kaf. Cough, cough. Now, you see three versions of this letter. Here is one without a dot. Here's the one with a dot, similar to these like this. But then you see this one right here, and you go, what in the world is that? Well, if this letter appears in the beginning or the middle of a word, it'll look like this or this, well, like a half circle, kind of like a half circle with a little curly on the end of each side. So you see that? But if it's the last letter of a word, then it has this symbol here. If you're familiar with Greek language, we have a letter called sigma. And when the sigma is showing when sigma is showing, it's a circle, kind of a backward circle, but when it's at the end of the word, it looks like an S. And so what you have to realize is that the letters look differently when they show up at the end. So that's what's happening here. This is called the final form. This is the way it will look, one of these two ways, if it's at the beginning of the word or in the middle of the word somewhere. If it's at the end of the word, it's going to show up like that. Okay? So, and this is how you say, well, does that affect anything? Well, that with the dot, that symbol with the dot is the K sound. Without the dot, K is practically a harsh K as above, so it's very similar to what we saw up here as a CH sound, similar to the hey, or the het, sorry, the het letter. And so just be aware of that. Again, mastery of pronunciation is not your worry. It's not to be the big concern. The main thing is just learning the order of the letters, the name of the letters, and learning the phonetical value and being able to be acquainted with that in terms of knowing the transliteration. So use this Quizlet program to be a help to you, okay? Use it to be a help to you. Now we have Lamed. Lamed. There's the next letter. Has a L sound. You can imagine that. And so actually this one rises above. And again, you'll see how I do those when I draw them for you. But here it's an L sound. An L sound is what we have here. And then we have mem. Mem. This is a funny, interesting character. And again, the way these letters look, there's a reason why they look this way. It goes back to pictographics. It goes back to a lot of history, and that's what those documentary movies tell you. So it's fascinating study of how these letters were created and how they developed over time. And again, that's what those documentary movies are. You'll find those very interesting. Very, very interesting. So anyway, you have the letter here, and with you have the final form. So if this letter is showing up at the beginning or the middle of a word, looks like that. If it's showing up in the final letter, so that's what these are. This column right here, these are final forms of these letters. So it'll look like that at the end, and it's got an M sound to it. Okay, it's an M sound. M. So here we have nun. Nun. It looks like that in the script form. This is the final form. This is at the beginning of a word or in the middle of a word, but it has an N transliteration value, and it's pronounced nun. Nun. And that's what our phonetical value says here. No change. Now we have, it's like a backward circle with a curly on it. Backward circle with a curly, and that is samek. Samek. And you could pretty much figure it's going to be an S sound. And so that's what that is. It's like a dull S. And so I say, what is a dull S? I really don't know. Again, mastery of pronunciation is not the issue here. Just kind of being aware of the distinct sounds. So at the end of the day, it's more like an S sound to me. Now here, remember I told you up here we had Aleph at the beginning. We had Aleph and it had no phonetical value. Well, I told you there's another letter like that, and that one is called Ayin. Ayin. It's letter A, but it's not A-yin. It's I-yin, like E-Y-E, like your eyeball. I-yin is the way you say this. And it looks like this. And you notice it has another breathing mark to it, but it's the opposite way. Notice this one starts from the right side and curls around to the back to the right. This one starts the other way, starts on the left side and goes back to the left. You say, well, does that have an effect on anything? Well, it's represented by a rough breathing. It's very difficult to pronounce, being produced at the back of the throat. It's almost like a gulping sound. For our purposes, the aleph letter, the very first letter in the alphabet, and the ayin letter, we just don't pronounce them. Okay? We just, no pronunciation at all. It's difficult to match the pronunciation of how these words were spoken. If you could magically get transported back into that time period, back into the days of Moses, back into the days of the conquest, back into the days of the kings, and hear them talk and hear them speak to each other, it would definitely sound like a foreign language to you. I mean, you would have no idea what they're saying. But they're speaking Hebrew. And so there's no way for us to go back like that, okay? So we're not worried about it. But again, for the practical purposes, there's no phonetical value to these two letters at all. So don't worry about it. Just be aware of that, okay? You just got to be aware of that. A few more letters to go. We have pay, so it's like P-A-Y. We say it like pay, the name of the letter. But it looks like this. So this could be similar. You'll find that these letters could look similar to other letters, but there's always something to distinguish them. And so this one has that. This one is like the cough letter, except instead of going, it goes up, but then it has this little X thing that goes down around it. And so it is distinguishable in its script form, but it can have no dot or have the dot, and it can also have a final form. It's as though it just gets elongated, right? It's like the circle just drops down straight. And that's the idea of the letter pay. You can definitely see that it has a P sound to it. So with the dot, it's the regular P sound. Without it, it's pronounced like an F. So it's softened to an F sound, similar as the B. The bait is hard B, but then softened to a V sound. So letters do that. Here we have Sade, Sade, and so we had Samic, which was the dull S. Sade, there's what that looks like. That's the character there, and when it shows up in the beginning of a word or the middle of the word. This is the final. If it shows up at the end of a word, it's going to look like that. Sade, and it's the pronunciation value is it's represented by an S with a dot underneath it, and that's like a hissing S. Again, at the end of the day, I'm going to pretty much, when I see that letter and that letter, Samic and Sade, I'm just going to say S. It's going to be an S kind of sound. I can't show the distinguishing characteristics of that when I'm practically, if I am trying to pronounce the words and the letters in the word. But again, you want to see that it's, even though it may have the same effect of pronunciation for us, at the end of the day, those are different letters. Okay? They are different letters in the alphabet. And they can be used in different ways in terms of the grammar moving forward. So that's why you have to learn each individual letter. You want to learn the order of the letters. You want to know the name of the letters. You want to know the transliteration value of the letters. And you want to know what they look like. Okay? So we have Sade. The next one is cough. Cough. Like you're coughing. C-O-U-C-H or something like G-H. Coughing. Coughing. Cough. And there's only one form of it. Looks like that. Now, this could be a Q or a K. So let's see what they say about it. It's a K sound like at the back of the throat, like the cawing of a crow. Caw, caw. Remember that? It's like a K sound and a mixture between a Q and a K sound. I think I used more of the Q sound for it instead of the K sound because we do have the letter cough up here, or cough, and so that's where I usually use my K sound. And then I'm more familiar with this being the Q sound. So again, it's they're very similar to each other. Here, the third to the last letter in the consonants is resh. Resh is how we say that. Resh. It looks like a backwards R, so that helps. It's like, well, okay, well, the language goes from left to right, so it looks like a backwards R. There's the transliteration value of it, and they just racious R sound. So just know that. Then we have two letters that sometimes they're looked on as two separate letters. Some Hebrew grammars would divide these as two separate letters. This grammar combines them and says it's the same letter, with the dots, these little dots that show up, not inside of them as much as either on the left side or the right side on top of it. So if it's this letter on the left, it's called sin or seen. It's really seen, like Seen. Okay, it looks like sin, doesn't it? But it's really seen. Seen, and then when you have the dot on the right, it's sheen. Seen and sheen. Seen, Sheen. Seen and sheen. So there's an added H value to that in terms of pronunciation. So with the dot over the left-hand corner is like S, a conventionally transcribed S. So we have three letters that have these S sounds, right? This would be, he says, your traditional S sound. Then we have the hissing S. Then we have the dull S. Again, at the end of the day, I doubt we're going to be able to distinguish that with the way we pronounce words, but these are individual letters. The dot over the right corner is represented by more of an SH. That's why we say seen and sheen. Seen and sheen is how we know the difference between them. So you always go from left to right normally. So seen and sheen is how you would know those on the letters. And those can show up anywhere in the words, even at the end. If they do show up at the end, it's still going to be like that. But they got that dot either on one side or the other, okay? And then we have tau, tau. Some would say tav. They would Tav is the way they want to pronounce the last name, or the letter to the last consonant, the name of the letter. So you can have it with a dot or without a dot. Here's it's with the dot. So there's certain letters. The dot here, you have the dot in the middle of that letter, the middle of that letter, middle of those three letters. We're going to actually talk about what that dot means in a future session. We have the final forms, so some letters have all the possibilities, but the last letter is tav or tau, and so you can see that it's a T sound. A T sound. Remember, I told you there is this letter up here that has a kind of a T sound, the tet, tet. That would be the dull T. But here is the regular T. If it has the dot, it's the regular T. If it doesn't have the dot, it's like a TH, like in the word think. Think. So you're going to see letters that are parallel with transliteration, but you want to be aware of all of this because um, you want to be aware of how the language operates, how it functions, and how things look. One other thing I want to show you is up here at the top here. Um, on this page, page 4, is you need to distinguish carefully between consonants of similar forms, as below. So this, I kind of mentioned this, but I just want you to be aware of it. You have these two letters, that's bait and cough. Here you have hey and het. Here you have samek, and then final mem. There's mem and tet, nun and gimel. You have Dalet, and then that's Resh, but then you have final Kof. Um, and then you have Yod and Wal or Vav. Wa is the, and then you have final Nun. So these are separate letters. They're different, but they look similar. You got there's ayin, there's sade, and then final sade. So you got all these letters that have similar looks to them, but you need to be able to distinguish carefully between them. They're individual letters. You want to be able to know the letters, know the differences uh, in terms of them, and what it's going to help you be able to do that better is when you are drawing the letters. When you're drawing them, that's going to help. That's going to have a good effect for you in terms of that. So another thing I want to talk about briefly is this is still in our letter A and letter B as we get started. And if you go back to the table of contents, so the foregoing table shows that the table that we just looked at shows here that that there are letters that you need to be aware of and kind of put them together. So there are 6 consonants that have alternate forms. If you look back at that chart, remember the ones that had the dots in them and didn't have the dots in them? Remember these? There were 6 of those without a dot, and that kind of softens them or spuriates their phonetical value. Then you can put dots in them, and it makes it hardens them. Well, we call this begod, B-E-G-A-D. We put these little vowels in here. Begod, B-E-G-A-D, kafat. Begod, kafat. K-E-P-H-A-T. We create that little nomenclature and begod, kafat. And it's a way to remember that there's these 6 letters that have those dots in them. Now, on page 14 of the textbook, we're just on page 2, we talk more about this, okay, and how that operates within the language. But just for now, be aware of that. Again, you can see that on the table that was on the previous page. Sorry, my microphone just came off, so I had to redo it. So you may be hearing a sound. Sorry about that. So you have the begod, kafat letters, and again, just this is to help you kind of show the distinction within the letters. But as we draw the letters, you'll see more, you'll be able to learn these more better. Also, 5 consonants, they assume special forms at the end of a letter or end of a word. So in the beginning or middle of the word, their forms they look like that. But at the end of the word, their forms look like this. So again, we covered this in the chart, but that's what this is telling you. It's highlighting that. Now, the consonants also have numerical signs or numerical values to them. So the units are represented by Aleph to Tet is values numbers 1 to 9. The 10s start with Yod and go all the way to Sade. And then the hundreds is all the other letters starting with Kof, going up to Tav or Tau. And so that's the hundreds. So you could see it like this. If you see a Yod and an Aleph, so this is the value of 1. So even though the letters are written left to right, um, you can see here you count it from I'm sorry, it's written from right to left, but you count it from left to right. So it starts here, just the value of 2 plus the value of Yod, which is 10. So what would that equal? 12. So let's look at a letter like this would be Tav, right? Tav, Resh. So the Resh has a value of 200. Tav has a value of 400. So 2 Tavs would be 200 plus 400 plus 400. That equals 1,000. So they would put these together like this to create values, to create numbers to them. So every letter had a numerical value to it. I will include the numerical values in the Quizlet chart or the Quizlet cards so that you're aware of that. Now, note this, in the compounds of tens and units, there are two exceptions to the above system. Numbers 15 and 16 are not denoted by this combination. Why is that? Because these combinations of letters form what was called the divine name. There was a YH, YH, Y, W sound representing Yah and Yo, and so it became the designated divine name for Yahweh. So you'll see this as we go into the Hebrew Bible. So number 15, if they wanted to get the values of 15 and 16, is designated in a different way. So it's 6 plus 9 value and 7 plus 9, and instead of 5 plus 10 and 6 plus 10. So the Hebrews knew how to do that. So it's kind of interesting when you see that. You learn a lot more when you learn language about how Jews would think, their mindset. So that's what's so good about learning language. But again, when you read a number in a translation, you may not would think of that. But that's okay. We're not going to be translating numbers right now. that's not happening anytime soon. But you just want to be aware of that. Maybe how the numbering system is. So the more you can learn the chart, the better you'll be. Okay, and you're going to want to spend some time doing that. Again, the next video that I make is going to show you the phonetical, not the phonetical value. It's going to show you the drawing, what it looks like when you draw it. And when you draw the letters for yourself, it really helps to solidify the phonetical value, what it looks like in script form, and the name of the letter. You can even put the numerical value with that as well. And so you'll begin to see how all of this, how these letters will come together. And you'll be made more aware of that. So again, the next video will have drawing, okay? There'll be drawing of these, of the different letters so that you're aware of what they look like and how you can draw them on paper. Because you don't try to, it's similar with Greek. You can see the script form for Greek letters, but the drawing of them doesn't work out exactly the same way. So, and everybody kind of draws some things a little bit differently. I have a system that I use. I'm going to show you that. And you can kind of adapt to it. There are probably other videos out there that show you how to draw the Hebrew letters, the biblical Hebrew letters. But I'll show you how I do mine. But this will get you started. Again, go to the YouTube video resources below that are below the video that you're watching. And I've put in links in there that'll take you to everything. Take you to the two documentary movies, take you to the Hebrew Bible itself. It'll take you to, I'm going to create like a worksheet for you to use basically. Probably for this, it'll just be the blank page that you'll see me use for drawing the letters. I'll have the Quizlet information there for you, how to get access to all of that. And so look at that. Every video has links below in the YouTube description box, and I'll make that evident to you. So sorry about my mic. I have a clip-on mic that I use, and but it's wired to my computer when I'm making these videos, so I get good as best audio as possible. And I was moving my legs, and it tripped underneath, and boom, popped off. And so there may have been a sound there, but sorry about that earlier. But hopefully this is all helpful to you. In terms of the book, let me kind of zoom out. Of the textbook, basically what we've done so far is we've done A and B. A was the table, and then we finished out letter A, and then the phonetical value started on the bottom of page 2 and was on page 3 there, and then at the top here of page 4. So the next session, I'm going to draw the letters, and then the session after that, we're going to go into letter C and letter D, vowel signs and explanation of writing. So we're going to make more progress through the grammar book is how this will work. But for now, this is where we're starting. So let me pray for us as we get started with learning Hebrew grammar. Dear Lord, we are thankful for all of your work that you do in our lives, how you work in our lives and lead us and guide us. And Lord, how you revealed your word to us in the Old Testament and the New Testament. And Lord, these were written in languages that we can now understand, that we can learn, that we can learn the grammar of. It just takes time, takes dedication, takes some commitment. But Lord, we know that your will can show us, that you have a way of showing us and helping us to learn this language, to be able to translate, to be able to understand the text and the details that you provide for us. Lord, we give you thanks and praise for all you do in our life, how you've changed us, saved us. And Lord, we just pray your blessing would be upon us. May you receive all praise and all glory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Well, again, if you have any questions about anything, let me know. Just put a comment in the box below, in the comment area. I'll see it and I can respond to it. And hopefully it's a question I can answer. But again, watch those documentary videos when you can. That's just kind of to give you an idea of how the language was formed. It's very, very intriguing. Well, take care, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.